we're getting real stupid here and talking about fish guys. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. This dude's running out of ideas. But be aware that fish guys is one of the most frequently requested topics in the comments here. And I'm nothing if not a populist, so I have no problem giving the people what they want. So open up your recipe books, fellas, because we're going to be cooking up some succulent seafood dishes here. Catcher, roasted Hank conger eel. The conger eel is a thick, meaty fish, so we'll want to roast this bad boy for a good 15 minutes or so. But don't get your hopes up because it's not the most delicious type of fish. And at 6'2", 220, Hank conger is a thick, meaty catcher.
My claim to fame was before high school practice, I ate 72 chicken McNuggets.
Who really wasn't all that great. First base, slow-baked Sid Bream. Emphasis on the slow. This may not be the most elegantly plated dish, but it is absolutely a win. Second base, lip pike in gel broth. Gonna go with a gefilte fish recipe for the first Jewish baseball player to play in the bigs, and his brother was probably the second.
If you will it, dude, it is no dream.
Lip Pike was the premier power hitter of Major League Baseball's inaugural decade, smashing 21 dead ball dingers in the 1870s and landing him in the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Third base, George Brett's Scrombroid Poison Mullet. Not many remember that George Brett was nicknamed Mullet, long before that term was associated with a hairstyle. It was just a fish. Hitting coach Charlie Lau dubbed Brett Mullet Head in 1974 due to his frustration with young Brett's stubbornness during a first-half slump. It would get shortened to just Mullet and then was probably forgotten about by the time George was ascending to living legend status in 1980. But we'll never forget George's wonderful story of his seafood poisoning-induced shitstorm at the Bellagio.
I had some food poisoning from the crabs.
Shortstop, Dickie Thon Tartar. A guy I probably should have had on the underrated 80s guys team. Dickie Thon put up a couple of massive seasons at short for the Astros in 82 and 83, before being hit by a pitch in the left eye in 84, which caused permanent partial blindness and put a damper on what could have been a Hall of Fame trajectory. Thon, or thon, the French word for tuna, was that good in 82 and 83. Offense, defense, speed, he was phenomenal, leading the NL in WAR in 1983. He would come back and play 9 more seasons as an average-ish shortstop, but definitely a what-could-have-been guy. And also, it occurs to me now that Dickie Tuna would have been an S-tier nickname. Left field, the Ralph Garr Kevin Bass Seafood Platoon Platter. We'll have both sides of your plate covered with this spread. 1974 batting champion Ralph Garr was an excellent lefty hitter who could hit lefties some, but really shined against righties. And Kevin Bass was a switch hitter who was much better from the right-hand side of the plate, and who did a mean Sammy Davis Jr. impression.
You're just a real cool cat, man, for doing this for me. I mean that.
Next, we're going to go a little out of order and go with a 3-course Trout Trifecta. We'll have 3 generations of Trout, with Mike in center, then Dizzy and Steve Trout in the rotation. Now, I know Mike Trout is not the son of Steve Trout, nor the grandson of Dizzy Trout, but I swear I really did think that was the case up until about 1 year ago. I just always assumed it. What are the chances of a baseball player named Trout not being any relation to a noted father-son baseball duo with the last name Trout? I've literally never known of any other person named Trout than these 3, and of course Kilgore. Although I do want to find out more about this Robbie Trout. But anyway, there are so many multi-generational baseball families that you just kind of expect it, like you do with Nepo babies in Hollywood. Like, for a while, I, among many others, jumped to the conclusion that this actor, Justice Smith, was Will Smith's son. It's a bit crazy because Smith is such a common name, but it's so rampant in that industry that it feels like it is more rare for a successful actor to not have a famous actor parent. So you assume it till proven otherwise. So no, Mike Trout is not a Nepo baby. A notion which strikes me as kind of funny, imagining a guy complaining about Nepo babies in Major League Baseball. No, unlike Hollywood, you don't get to the big stage without quantitatively proving yourself at several different levels. Although, and I know I'm going off on a tangent, but the only guy I feel like you could make this Nepo baby case with, and it's very thin, is Mike Piazza. Okay, stay with me. I know Piazza's a Hall of Fame player, but he was only drafted because of his close family connection with Tommy Lasorda, who asked the Dodgers as a personal favor to use the final pick in the draft to take Mike. Would Piazza have even made it to the bigs if he doesn't have this connection? You'd like to think he would, that he would have been the rare undrafted free agent turned star like Bobby Bonilla, Toby Harrah, or Bruce Sutter. But you never know. How many guys might give up and move on, knowing the odds are stacked against you as an undrafted guy? We all assume that baseball is a pure meritocracy, and I would say it is, more than most things. It's not like guys are getting fast-tracked to the majors because, say, they're the scion of a petroleum empire, or because they're the heir to 2 NFL franchises, or because their family basically owns an entire Midwestern metropolis, or because their dad was the commissioner of Major League Baseball. Not to say that these people are bad actors. Like, I love Paul Giamatti. Please forgive me, Paul.
You are and always have been penis cancer in human form.
Yeah, I deserve that. But how many of us might have had a shot? If only Ted Williams would have come and watched us hit in the cage as a favor to our brother's godfather. It could have been me, I tell you.
I'll be your agent, buddy.
But it seriously does make you wonder how many could have been great players have fallen through the cracks. But I digress. Let's turn our attention back to these few Trouts I got on the grill before they overcook. In center, we all know Mike Trout, one of the most goated players in recent history. Then we get Dizzy Trout and his son, Steve Rainbow Trout, in the rotation. Dizzy was a great pitcher and a legendary character. There are a bunch of tall tales attached to Dizzy. My favorite is when he was pitching to the pesky Luke Appling, who fouled off a dozen straight pitches. Trout got so angry he threw his glove, yelling, "Let's see you foul that off." And Appling did. Dizzy had 10 children, and one day while playing catch with 12-year-old Steve, he yelled out to his wife, "This is the little SOB who can pitch. We can stop having kids now." He was right, Steve could pitch, although not as well as his old man, but he did put together a very respectable 12-year career. Right field, Ichiro Suzuki Sashimi. Suzuki is the Japanese word for sea bass, and it's just pure, raw elegance on the plate, at the plate, and in right field. DH, Smoked Tim Salmon. A man who could absolutely smoke a baseball, Tim Salmon gives us a great power bat at the DH slot. Rotation. We've already got the Trout father-son duo. We're also going to serve up some southern fried Catfish Hunter. The native North Carolinian may be a bit of a bottom feeder in baseball's Hall of Fame, as his career stats really aren't overwhelming, but he rode that elite nickname straight into the Hall. And for 2 years, in 74 and 75, Hunter was one of the best in the game. And Southern Fried Mudcat Grant. We've got 2 catfish varieties in our rotation. I can't seem to find a definitive story behind Jim Grant's nickname. I've found several variations. One roots the name in a racist hazing by a fellow player in training camp. Another says that Larry Doby gave him the name, saying that he was as ugly as a Mississippi mudcat. Grant was a consistent starter who shifted to the bullpen in his later years, where he excelled. His best season by WAR came in 1970 when he threw 135 terrific innings out of the pen and notched 4.8 WAR, his career high. He spent most of that year with the A's on the same staff as Catfish Hunter, making that the first and probably only ever 2 Catfish Guy team. Pan-fried Robbie Ray. I didn't know if eating stingray was dangerous or even legal to eat. Like, there's toxins and stuff, right? So I thought this might have to be like a wet market type of thing, but apparently it's totally cool. So we're going to round out our rotation with Robbie Ray, a guy who's had a real up and down career. He's been an average-ish guy except for 3 seasons, including the current one, where he's been terrific. Bullpen. Humble Anthony Bass Pie. This guy had a late career renaissance with a terrific age 35 season in 2022, but then couldn't stop putting his foot in his mouth on social media. First, he complained online about a flight attendant asking him and his wife to pick up after their toddler's mess, which prompted plenty of criticism from the internet. Then he shared a video on Instagram that called the Blue Jays' pride-themed merchandise demonic, which he apologized for after backlash. But this, combined with his on-field performance deteriorating, led to him being released in May of 23. Pickled Art Herring. Much like pickling allows a food product to be stored for a long time, pitcher Art Herring held an obscure batting record for the pickling of his power stroke at the plate. 15 years in between doubles. Eventually, Jamie Moyer would break this pickled doubles record with a 19-year stretch. And that's a fun fact.
How about that?
Really wish Art Herring had a noted drinking problem, because then I could have done a thing about soused herring. Oh well, you can dream.
It's my dream.
Jeff Samardzja's pan-seared Pixar shark steaks. Samardzja apparently got his nickname from his resemblance to the shark in Finding Nemo. Okay, I don't know how you look at this guy and you don't name him Guy Fawkes, or like D'Artagnan or something. Like, what are we doing here, guys? It's a cool look though, and it would have been great if he had been a full-time reliever and really leaned into the loose cannon reliever mindset. You know, Raleigh fingers up the mustache and do some swashbuckling type celebrations on the hill. Anyway, he did spend a lot of time in the pen during his career, so he's going to serve a swingman role on this team. Harry Salmon with beans. Okay, that doesn't sound too appetizing, but Negro Leagues hurler Harry Salmon, nicknamed Beans, had some very appetizing seasons for the Birmingham Black Barons in the 1920s. He'll be a swingman as well, as he pitched a lot out of the pen in his career. New England-baked George Haddock. New Hampshire native Gentleman George Haddock will give us yet another swingman, although he really spent most of his time as a starter in the 1890s. Haddock has maybe one of the wildest year-to-year turnarounds. In 1890, Haddock did this, but then came back in 1891 and did this, a 9.8 WAR swing. And to round out the staff, jellied Harry Eels. Taking this guy for the name alone. He only pitched for one season in 1906, but with the name Harry Archibald Eels, he sounds very much like a British chap who would enjoy this type of old-timey London pub grub. Bench. Catcher. Fried Muddy Rule. Muddy Rule was a much better player than Hank Conger, but I'm going to put him on the bench as his fish bona fides are a bit tenuous. His nickname had nothing to do with a mudfish, mudcat, mudskipper, or mudsucker. But we're going to pretend it's short for mudskipper, a fish that, like Rule, was noted for its unusual body shape. Rule was incredibly small for a backstop at 5'9" and 150 pounds. He had no power whatsoever at the plate, but had an excellent batting eye, recording a .365 career OBP over a 19-year career. Utility. Spooky Chico Salmon Canapes. We're going with a Halloween-themed recipe for Chico Salmon, this 1970s utility man who was known for his extreme fear of ghosts. He slept with the lights on and stuck chewing gum into keyholes and towels under doors to keep the apparitions out. He was a utility man who played everywhere but catcher. This guy's position column on Baseball Reference is number wang.
Thou art Lord Simon of Number Wang.
But weirdly, Chico wasn't particularly good defensively at any of those positions. He was known for having terrible hands. One of his Orioles teammates joked that if Chico's hands got any worse, they'd have to amputate. Outfield. Fried AJ Pollock and chips. Listen, you might prefer your fish and chips with cod, but this is still very good. AJ Pollock was definitely a bit of a disappointment to Dodgers fans after his free agent signing in 2019, but he did put together a couple of solid years for them in 20 and 21 before being dealt for Craig Kimbrell. Put some tartar sauce on that, and you're going to be happy. Randy Bass Tataki. Tataki refers to a lightly seared meat or fish, but the word literally means pounded, which is a great way to describe what Randy Bass did to NPB pitching in the 1980s. Bass is the ultimate big in Japan guy. He bounced around the majors as a sub-replacement level first baseman through his age 28 season before signing with the Hanshin Tigers and becoming a Japanese baseball legend. Bass slashed .337, .418, .660 over 6 seasons in Japan. In 1986, he nearly became the first player in the league to bat .400, finishing at .389, which to this day is the single-season batting average record in Japan. By the way, he slugged .777 that year. And in '85, he nearly broke Sadohara Oh's home run record, falling one short at 54. And in both those seasons, Bass won the Triple Crown. His name would be transcribed in Japanese as this, the Japanese word for bus, pronounced basu. But the Tigers, which were owned by the Hanshin Railway Company, which operated a bus line, had the name changed to this symbol, pronounced Beisu. The company was concerned that Bass's hot hitting would lead newspapers to create headlines like Hanshin Bus Unstoppable or Hanshin Bus Explodes, thus tarnishing the corporate image. Bass is also famous in Japan for the Curse of the Colonel. After the Tigers won the Central League title, fans celebrated by reading off the names of each Tiger, after which the person who most resembled that player would jump into a filthy canal. Sure, when it got to Bass, the best anyone could do was a life-size model of Colonel Sanders, which I guess somebody just happened to have on them. After 85, the Tigers would go on a 38-year championship drought. Anyway, this Randy Bass Tataki must be washed down with a gigantic Suntory premium malt beer like Bass is modeling here at a 2009 Old Timers game in Tokyo. Una lata de Luis Sardinas. This is just a can of sardines, and just a guy who can play short for you. You always need a guy who can play short, even if he's not amazing. And you also need your omega-3 fatty acids, even if it's not the most delicious fish. Outfield. Croatian catfish Metkovic stew. George Metkovic, the son of Croatian immigrants, got his nickname after a freak catfishing injury during spring training of 1940. He wasn't doing any noodling, if that's what you're thinking. No, the hook got caught in the fish's mouth, and he put his foot on it while his buddy tried to retrieve the hook. One of the catfish's fins cut through the bottom of his shoe and into his foot, causing him to miss a week of games. Manager Casey Stengel said, "It couldn't have been a catfish. It must have been a fillet of sole." Metkovic was a mediocre player, but he maintained a second job to fall back on all throughout his 10-year MLB career. He was a member of the Screen Actors Guild since he was in high school and appeared in a number of Hollywood productions in the 40s and 50s, usually playing a baseball player. That's some serious typecasting. Alright, that's our Fish Guys roster and menu. Dig in and let me know who we left off. I know there are plenty of Fish Guys in the sea.